Dr. Balaji has already, and you have already set the stage for limb ischemia. I'm going to be talking about critical limb ischemia and limb salvage. And just to introduce this subject, the critical limb ischemia actually refers to criticality. And when we see this patients as a whole, these patients would be having multi-level disease, multifactorial disease. They have multivascular beds which are involved. They have high risk of dying. They have high risk of amputation. And usually they come to us with complications like ulceration, gangrene, sepsis, and occlusion requiring amputation. And this is all because of hypoxia, which is severe. And this leads to, if you see the severity of hypoxia, it actually increases. And what it leads to is hemodynamic changes, microvascular adaptation, macrovascular adaptation, and tissue remodeling. Now, the risk factors for critical limb ischemia are the same as atherosclerosis risk factors, which are hypertension, diabetes, smoking, dyslipidemia, and family history. Also, that I'll be talking about we'll be talking about drug therapy, exercise therapy, nutritional therapy, lecture, and minimally invasive procedures and surgical therapy. So just giving you, these are the broad ways we treat critical limb ischemia. And it differs from acute limb ischemia that suddenness of ischemia is not there. It is probably a high-grade stenosis where you have overadded thrombosis, which leads to criticality and deterioration of the patient. And the symptoms are usually ischemic rest pain, ischemic ulceration, or gangrene. And many a times these patients come, you have to be seeing what are the modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. And if you look at hemodynamics, and if you are doing tissue pressure studies and oxygen level studies, what you'll find that patients with ischemic rest pain would have an ankle pressure less than 50, toe pressure less than 30, TCPO2 less than 20, and the skin perfusion pressure less than 30. And the patients with tissue loss would have ankle pressure less than 70, toe pressure less than 50, TCPO2 less than 40, and skin perfusion less than 40. And if you classify them into Fontaine or Rutherford classification, they would be in Rutherford 4, 5, 6 or Fontaine 3 and 4 classification. And what is very important also is what we are following is not only that, because these patients have infected wounds. We follow the Wi-Fi classification, which is the wound ischemia, where we look at the extent and depth of the wound, ischemia, where we look at the perfusion and the flow. And we also look at the foot infection, which is very important. We look at its presence and extent, and we scale it into 4 points. So I'm not going to be taking through this classification, but what is very important is if the survival is poor, and as the long-term survival or 5-year survival with CLI is quite low. And what it requires is a team approach where we revascularize, being interventional cardiologist, vascular surgeon, or radiologist. We assess the risk factors as cardiologists, and we actually address to these risk factors. We take a proper wound care with the help of podiatrists, and we take care of infections. And many of the time, these patients would require broad spectrum antibiotics, sometimes tissue specific, which could be Ceftum or Linezolid. We have, if the patient is diabetic, which usually is the case, we require a good diabetic care of these patients and also want to take care of comorbidities. Just to give you a principle of managing CLI and revascularizing these patients, a straight line flow is what is required right from the aortic bifurcation to the foot. And if we can maintain that, we can actually make many of these limbs viable, although still body can. And it's better to actually revascularize as much as possible, but we need to understand that these patients are quite sick. We have to look at their kidney function. We have to look at how much they can tolerate. But if we can have a straight line flow down from aortic bifurcation to the foot, we can actually save many limbs. Now, if you have time and if the patient can permit, it's better that you treat them with angiosome concept. That means these are similar to dermatomes and neurotomes, where they have a specific supply for the specific branch. And if you can open that, it's much better. So in summary, critical limb ischemia is the most severe form of peripheral arterial disease. Patients with CLI carry a very high mortality, not only because of the limb, but also because of the multi-level and diffuse atherosclerosis in the body. And in addition to establishing adequate perfusion to the limb, it is essential to treat the risk factors and control them well. And treatment of CLI is a multi-speciality approach as always. Now, what you are seeing here is now with proper treatment of CLI, the amputation rates are decreasing and the survival rates are increasing. And I'd like to just give you one case before I conclude. This is a patient who presented with critical limb ischemia, almost a cold limb, and he had a non-healing ulcer. The initial plan was to do, what you do here is an angiogram, and what you see in an angiogram, that is a flush occlusion of the superficial femoral artery. Our plan was to go antegrade as from the CT. The CTO was thought to be from mid-segment, but when we did an angio, we went contralateral, we found that it actually arose right from the place where the bifurcation was. So these, however, the angio images show the CTO was from the ostium of the SFA. You have the, you can see the entire SFA is occluded, and it reconstitutes around the knee level as the popliteal artery. After that, we switched over to the crossover technique, and we went and selectively took a microcatheter, and we went down to identify the SFA. And then after we identified the SFA, we intubated the SFA and went down with the wire. And here, for the first time in country and maybe Asia, we use the glide wire advantage, which has a very, it is a very specific and tailor-made wire for crossing CTOs like this. And what we do is we plan to do angioplasty. We cross the lesion which was tight with the wire support and the support of a catheter. And after that, once we were not very successful, we went subintimally with the same technique using this glide wire advantage as well as proper support catheter which is dedicated to this. So we form a loop in the subintimal plane, and we go on dissecting all the way to the place where we know the popliteal artery is on the right. You can see on the right side, and that is where the whole importance lies in re-entry to the popliteal artery. Because if you enter distally, you get into more and more problems. So we have checked our subintimal path all the way up to popliteal artery, and now if you see with the help of a Navicross micro catheter from Thermo, we could take it to the below. We could go and just get into the below knee arteries. You can see that, and then we sort of identified our true lumen entry by putting in the same micro catheter and injecting into the anterior tibial artery. So once that was there, we crossed distally with the same wire once we were sure of our position, and then took out the micro catheter, and then we went ahead and checked our position, changed the wire, and then went with the routine angioplasty with a balloon. This is a dilatation of SFA with 6 millimeter balloon into 140 millimeter balloon. And this is after dilatation and subintimal angioplasty. You have good flow all the way down up to the popliteal artery. So post initial POBA, we noted that after some time the patient re-occluded at the anterior tibial artery, and this was likely to because of a thrombus migration. So as I always told you, the autopsies have shown and the clinical conditions have shown that the patients in CLI deteriorate because of acute thrombosis over a critical, multi-level critical stenosis. So we recrossed the ATA with 014 wire easily, and the POBA was done to anterior tibial artery, from anterior tibial artery to popliteal artery with a 3 into 120 millimeter balloon. And this is the final result which we got. And the patient, and this is the result in the SFA, mid SFA, distal SFA, and up to the common femoral bifurcation. So this gentleman had almost complete warming of the foot and was maintained over the following week. He was able to ambulate after months on wheelchair. And this glide wire actually has an advantage that you can do many of these complex lesions with simplicity. And the Navicross is a good tool to have in our cath lab. These patients typically do well with triple antiplatelet therapy. The third one should be cilostazol. It has class 1A indication. And this is because cilostazol also has a vasodilatory effect apart from the antiplatelet effect. I'll end here, and we welcome Dr. Wang Nu, who is an expert and a well-known, world-known figure in endocrinology. He runs a good, diabetic foot clinic at our hospital, and we very closely work with him. So over to Dr. Wang Nu on demystifying diabetic foot.